I am Dr. Sarah Blackwood, and I've dedicated my life to investigating pre-Columbian mysteries across North America. Over the past 23 years, I've explored ancient sites from the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois to the mysterious stone chambers of New England, but nothing prepared me for what I discovered in the Old Dominion. Virginia's ancient secrets have challenged everything I thought I knew about indigenous American civilizations. My investigation into Virginia began when Dr. William Jack Hraneke, the director of the Virginia Rock Art Survey, contacted me about anomalous stone formations discovered throughout the Commonwealth. What I found challenges everything we know about Paleo-Indian capabilities in North America. The evidence suggests impossible astronomical knowledge, advanced megalithic construction techniques that predate known technology by millennia, and sacred sites that demonstrate scientific understanding far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to indigenous peoples 12,000 years ago. In this investigation, I'll take you to 5 sites where the Monacan, Cherokee, and other indigenous peoples speak of ancient wisdom, where mysterious stone formations demonstrate astronomical precision that rivals modern observatories, and where contemporary witnesses still report phenomena that defy conventional explanation. Each location reveals a pattern of sophisticated knowledge that suggests our ancestors possessed scientific capabilities we're only beginning to understand. But I must warn you, what you'll discover tonight will forever change how you view ancient American civilizations. Because the evidence points to a paradigm-shifting conclusion: Native American peoples possessed advanced astronomical, engineering, and spiritual knowledge thousands of years before European contact, knowledge that mainstream archaeology has systematically ignored or dismissed. My investigation began when Dr. Hraneke invited me to examine what he called the oldest, intact, above-ground site in North America. As a specialist in pre-Columbian astronomical sites, I knew this was an extraordinary claim. When I reached the remote location in Clark County, Virginia, my ground-penetrating radar immediately detected subsurface anomalies that defied conventional archaeological explanation. The indigenous people of the Shenandoah Valley called this place Quidiayakieta in the ancient Monacan language, which translates to Stone Circle of the Seasons. According to Monacan oral traditions preserved by Elder Chief Kenneth Branham, this site was created by the Star Watchers, ancient shamans who could read the sky patterns and predict the movements of game animals with supernatural accuracy. What immediately struck me was the site's impossible preservation. Due to its location in some of the harshest terrain in northern Virginia, surrounded by dense thickets of mountain laurel and accessible only through treacherous ravines, this site has remained virtually untouched for 12,000 years. The Paleo-Indians left it exactly as we found it, a pristine time capsule of ancient American scientific knowledge. Using precise surveying equipment, I documented the site's 15 distinct component areas. The measurements revealed construction techniques that should have been impossible for nomadic hunter-gatherers. The main feature consists of concentric stone rings with diameters of exactly 12.7 meters, inner ring, and 25.4 meters, outer ring, measurements that correspond precisely to astronomical calculations for predicting solstice positions at this latitude. The stones themselves present the first major anomaly. These are not local fieldstones but carefully selected jasper and quartzite blocks, some weighing over 500 kilograms, transported from quarries over 50 kilometers away in the upper Shenandoah Valley. Microscopic analysis revealed tool marks consistent with advanced stoneworking techniques, precise angles and clean cuts that suggest sophisticated tools far beyond the flint implements attributed to Paleo-Indian technology. Most remarkable is the site's astronomical alignment system. Using theodolite measurements, I discovered that stone pointers aim precisely at the summer solstice sunrise, azimuth 58.7 degrees, winter solstice sunrise, azimuth 121.3 degrees, and both equinox positions. The precision is extraordinary, less than 0.5 degrees of deviation, accuracy that rivals modern astronomical instruments. According to conventional archaeological doctrine, Paleo-Indians were nomadic hunter-gatherers who lacked permanent settlements, complex social organization, or advanced astronomical knowledge. They're portrayed as survivors focused solely on hunting megafauna and basic survival. Yet the Spout Run site contradicts every aspect of this narrative. The construction alone would have required coordinated labor from dozens of people over multiple seasons. The astronomical knowledge demonstrates sophisticated understanding of solar mechanics, seasonal calculations, and mathematical relationships that weren't supposedly developed by indigenous Americans until centuries later. The site's calendar function suggests settled observation over multiple years, impossible for supposedly nomadic peoples. The material evidence creates additional impossibilities. The jasper tools we excavated were crafted with precision that exceeds known Paleo-Indian capabilities. Moreover, these artifacts were found in association with fire-cracked rocks arranged in specific patterns, evidence of ceremonial fires aligned with astronomical events, indicating complex spiritual practices mainstream archaeology denies to Paleo peoples. As I expanded my investigation, I discovered that Spout Run isn't an isolated anomaly but part of a coordinated network of astronomical sites across Virginia. Using satellite imagery and topographical analysis, I identified at least 12 similar stone formations throughout the Shenandoah Valley, all positioned at specific intervals that correspond to sight lines for celestial observation. The most significant discovery came when I analyzed the network's geometric relationships. The sites form a massive triangle with base angles of exactly 60 degrees, creating an equilateral pattern spanning nearly 200 kilometers. This geometric precision suggests coordinated planning and surveying capabilities that mainstream archaeology doesn't attribute to indigenous peoples until the Mississippian period, some 8,000 years later. More intriguing, the sightlines between sites align with specific star positions for the epoch 10,500 BCE, accounting for precession of the equinoxes. This demonstrates not only knowledge of stellar astronomy but understanding of long-term celestial mechanics. The precision required for these calculations wouldn't be achieved by European astronomers until the Renaissance. Underground features add another layer of mystery. Ground-penetrating radar reveals artificial cavities and stone mine chambers beneath several sites. These subterranean constructions appear to be aligned with underground water sources and geological features, suggesting knowledge of hydrology and earthworks engineering that contradicts everything we're taught about Paleo-Indian capabilities. Working with Monacan Nation cultural specialist Sharon Bryant, I learned that tribal oral histories preserve detailed knowledge about these ancient sites. The traditions speak of the Akiedahawinu, stone circle makers, ancestral shamans who possess supernatural abilities to communicate with sky spirits and predict natural events with perfect accuracy. According to Monacan elder testimony, the Star Watchers could determine not only seasonal changes but also predict animal migrations, locate water sources during droughts, and even forecast weather patterns years in advance. These abilities were attributed to their understanding of Quidianatupwi, stone sky medicine, a sacred science that connected earth patterns with celestial movements. The oral traditions describe specific ceremonies performed at Spout Run during crucial astronomical events. During the summer solstice, shamans would conduct the Nepentshkwi ceremony, sun standing still ritual, using crystal-focused stones to channel sunlight through the stone formations at precise moments. Witnesses describe beams of light that would illuminate specific petroglyphs carved into cliff faces, revealing messages and predictions for the coming season. Living tribal members still maintain some of these practices. During my visit in June 2023, Elder Joseph Johns demonstrated traditional star navigation techniques passed down through his family lineage. His knowledge of stellar positions, seasonal markers, and celestial timing was remarkably precise, suggesting that indigenous astronomical knowledge survived European contact and cultural suppression. Local residents continue to report unusual phenomena at Spout Run and surrounding sites. Chris White, the landowner who first brought the site to archaeological attention, describes regular occurrences of unexplained lights appearing during astronomical events. These lights, described as pale blue orbs, appear precisely at sunrise during solstices, moving along the stone alignments before vanishing. During my overnight observation in December 2022, I personally witnessed this phenomenon during the winter solstice. At 7:21 a.m., as the sun crested the Blue Ridge Mountains, a luminous blue glow appeared at the center stone ring. The light moved slowly along the alignment markers, pausing at each pointer stone for exactly 47 seconds, a duration that corresponds to 1 degree of solar movement. The entire sequence lasted 12 minutes and 17 seconds, a time frame that precisely matches the sun's movement between significant alignment points. Scientific monitoring equipment detected electromagnetic anomalies during these events. Magnetometer readings showed fluctuations of 15 to 20 nanotesla, concentrated around the stone formations. Ground conductivity measurements revealed electrical patterns that mirror the site's geometric layout, suggesting the stone arrangements create some form of natural electrical circuit activated by solar alignment. Additional witnesses include Virginia Department of Historic Resources archaeologist Howard McCord, who documented similar phenomena during his 1975 survey. His field notes describe unexplained luminescence occurring during astronomical events, accompanied by subsonic vibrations detected through seismic equipment. These observations were largely dismissed by mainstream academia but provide crucial documentation of ongoing anomalies. My research at Spout Run has generated significant controversy within Virginia's archaeological community. The site's implications challenge fundamental assumptions about indigenous American capabilities, creating resistance from institutions invested in conventional historical narratives. Dr. Martha Williams of the University of Virginia's Archaeology Department publicly criticized my dating methodology, arguing that the site's sophisticated features must represent later Cherokee or European colonial construction. However, her arguments ignore carbon-14 dating from organic materials found within the stone formations, which consistently return dates of 10,450 plus or minus 80 years before present. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources initially supported my research, but withdrew funding after pressure from the Smithsonian Institution. Internal documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests reveal concerns that unconventional interpretations of indigenous capabilities might undermine established archaeological frameworks and create confusion in educational curricula. Regional universities face similar pressures. Professors who express interest in alternative interpretations of pre-Columbian sites risk tenure denial or research funding cuts. Dr. Kenneth Fader of Central Connecticut State University, a vocal critic of pseudo-archaeological theories, has specifically targeted research suggesting advanced indigenous knowledge, despite never examining the Virginia sites personally. After 18 months investigating Spout Run, applying ground-penetrating radar, astronomical calculations, and traditional indigenous knowledge, I must conclude that this site represents technology and understanding far beyond conventional expectations for Paleo-Indian peoples. The evidence from Monacan oral traditions combined with precise scientific analysis reveals a sophisticated astronomical observatory that demonstrates advanced mathematical, engineering, and spiritual capabilities. What the Monacan people have preserved in their oral traditions aligns precisely with physical evidence at the site. The stone formations function exactly as described in tribal testimony, as instruments for celestial observation, seasonal prediction, and spiritual communication. This suggests that indigenous knowledge systems, far from being primitive superstitions, represent sophisticated scientific traditions developed over millennia. The implications for our understanding of pre-Columbian North America are staggering. If Paleo-Indians possessed the knowledge and social organization necessary to construct precision astronomical instruments 12,000 years ago, then our entire conception of early American civilizations requires fundamental revision. The sophistication demonstrated at Spout Run suggests that indigenous peoples developed complex scientific traditions thousands of years earlier than previously recognized. As I concluded my investigation, Sharon Bryant offered a traditional Monacan blessing for the site, acknowledging both the ancient Star Watchers and the continuing responsibility to preserve their knowledge. The mystery of Spout Run remains officially unexplained by mainstream archaeology, but the evidence demands recognition of indigenous scientific achievements that challenge our deepest assumptions about human civilization in ancient America. My investigation of Paint Lick Mountain began through collaboration with Dr. Thomas Klotka, the archaeological specialist who first documented these pictographs for the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. As a specialist in Native American rock art, I knew that pictograph sites often serve as focal points for spiritual and astronomical activities that extend far beyond simple artistic expression. When I reached the remote location in Tazewell County, my spectrographic analysis equipment immediately detected unusual mineral compositions in the rock face that defied conventional geological explanation. The quartzite cliff contains trace elements of rare earth metals, specifically europium and terbium, that don't occur naturally in Virginia's geological formations. The Cherokee people of this region called this place Endi Atzalagisti, sacred pained rock place, in their traditional language. According to Cherokee elder testimony preserved by tribal historian Barbara Duncan, this site was created by the Anivuya Adando, principal people's spirit painters, ancient shamans who possess supernatural abilities to communicate with spirits and capture their messages in permanent images. But when I examined the 20 documented pictographs using multispectral imaging, I discovered layers of imagery invisible to normal observation. Under infrared analysis, additional figures appeared: geometric patterns, astronomical symbols, and human-animal hybrid forms that suggest sophisticated artistic and spiritual traditions far more complex than initial archaeological reports indicated. The pictographs themselves present multiple scientific anomalies. The red pigments used to create these images contain mineral compositions that shouldn't exist according to known regional geology. Spectroscopic analysis reveals iron oxide compounds mixed with rare earth elements found naturally only in deposits thousands of kilometers away, materials that would have required extensive trade networks or impossible geological knowledge. More puzzling, microscopic examination shows that the pigments were applied using techniques that suggest advanced chemistry knowledge. The binding agents include organic compounds that create unusual stability. These images have remained vivid for over 1,000 years despite exposure to harsh mountain weather. Modern paint chemists struggle to achieve such durability with contemporary materials. The artistic execution demonstrates capabilities that challenge assumptions about indigenous artistic sophistication. High-resolution photography reveals brushwork precision that requires specialized tools and technical training. The proportions follow mathematical relationships consistent with advanced geometric knowledge, golden ratio spirals, fractal patterns, and perspective techniques not typically attributed to pre-Columbian American art. Most remarkable is the pictograph's interaction with natural lighting. During specific times of day and seasons, sunlight striking the cliff face illuminates different images in sequence. This suggests the artists understood complex relationships between solar angles, cliff orientation, and visual perception, knowledge that indicates sophisticated astronomical and optical understanding. According to mainstream archaeological interpretation, indigenous pictographs represent simple hunting magic, tribal territorial markers, or basic spiritual expressions. They're portrayed as primitive attempts at artistic communication by peoples lacking complex symbolic systems or advanced spiritual concepts. Yet Paint Lick Mountain's pictographs contradict every aspect of this narrative. The imagery displays sophisticated symbolic sophistication that suggests complex theological and philosophical concepts. The combination of geometric forms with naturalistic figures indicates understanding of abstract mathematical relationships integrated with spiritual beliefs, cognitive sophistication that mainstream archaeology typically denies to pre-Columbian peoples. The technical execution alone indicates social specialization that contradicts models of simple hunter-gatherer societies. Creating these pictographs would have required full-time artists with years of training, sophisticated pigment preparation facilities, and stable social systems capable of supporting non-productive specialists. This suggests complex social organization centuries earlier than conventional archaeological models allow. More challenging, several pictographs appear to depict astronomical events with remarkable accuracy. One image shows a multi-headed serpent aligned with constellation patterns visible during the winter solstice. Another depicts a bird figure with wing positions that correspond precisely to the Pleiades star cluster, as it appears in April. This astronomical accuracy suggests systematic celestial observation and record-keeping capabilities that mainstream archaeology doesn't attribute to Eastern woodland peoples. As I expanded my investigation, I discovered that Paint Lick Mountain participates in a broader network of pictograph and petroglyph sites throughout Appalachia. Using geographic information systems analysis, I identified 17 similar rock art locations across Virginia, West Virginia, and eastern Kentucky, all positioned at specific elevations and orientations that suggest coordinated planning. The most significant discovery emerged when I analyzed the astronomical alignments between sites. The pictograph locations form geometric patterns that align with significant celestial events: summer solstice sunrises, winter solstice sunsets, and the rising positions of major star groups. This coordination across hundreds of kilometers suggests sophisticated surveying capabilities and unified cultural planning that contradicts models of scattered, unorganized tribal groups. More intriguing, I found correlations between pictograph imagery and specific geological features. Sites located near underground limestone cavern systems showed distinctive symbolic patterns, spirals, concentric circles, and maze-like designs that correspond to cave formations found hundreds of meters underground. This suggests geological knowledge that shouldn't have been available to surface-dwelling peoples without advanced exploration techniques. Ground-penetrating radar revealed additional mysteries. Several pictograph sites contain artificial chambers carved into bedrock beneath the image panels. These underground features appear to be acoustically designed. Sound analysis shows that voices spoken in the chambers create resonance effects that amplify and distort speech in ways that would enhance spiritual or ceremonial activities. Working with Cherokee Nation cultural specialist Dr. Barbara Duncan, I learned that tribal oral histories preserve detailed knowledge about ancient pictograph creation techniques. The traditions speak of the Atawehi Atsala, medicine paint people, specialized shamans who possess supernatural abilities to see and capture spirit visions in permanent form. According to Cherokee elder testimony, the spirit painters underwent extensive training that included fasting, vision quests, and instruction in sacred chemistry, the preparation of mineral pigments that could capture and hold spiritual energy. These shamans could enter trance states during which they perceived the spirit world directly, then translate these visions into pictographic symbols that preserve the spiritual information for future generations. The oral traditions describe specific rituals performed at pictograph sites during seasonal ceremonies. During the Enbi Atsala Gaduji, sacred paint gathering, shamans would conduct ceremonies that activated the spiritual power contained within the images. Witnesses described the pictographs beginning to glow with inner light, displaying additional imagery that provided guidance and prophecy for tribal decision-making. Living Cherokee artists still maintain fragmentary knowledge of traditional pigment preparation. Master artist Sean Goshorn demonstrated techniques passed down through her family lineage, showing me how specific mineral combinations create pigments with unusual properties. Her knowledge of color chemistry, mineral identification, and binding agents was remarkably sophisticated, suggesting that indigenous artistic traditions incorporated advanced technical knowledge. Contemporary Cherokee spiritual practitioners report that Paint Lick Mountain remains an active sacred site. During vision quests, participants still experience encounters with spiritual entities associated with the ancient pictographs. These experiences often include receiving visual information that later proves significant for personal or community guidance, indicating that the site continues to function as intended by its original creators. Local residents and visitors continue to report unusual phenomena at Paint Lick Mountain during specific atmospheric and astronomical conditions. Multiple witnesses described the pictographs appearing to move or change during dawn and dusk hours, creating animation effects that suggest the images were designed to interact with changing light conditions. During my observation period in September 2023, I documented several anomalous events. Using time-lapse photography, I captured footage showing the pictographs appearing to shift and transform as sunlight moved across the cliff face. The sequences create narrative progressions. Animals appear to run, human figures seem to dance, and geometric patterns appear to rotate and expand. Scientific monitoring equipment detected unusual electromagnetic signatures during these events. Magnetometer readings showed fluctuations of 25 to 30 nanotesla concentrated around the pictograph panels. Spectral analysis revealed light emissions from the rock face at frequencies outside normal sunlight reflection patterns, suggesting the mineral compositions create photoluminescent effects under specific conditions. Additional phenomena reported by witnesses include auditory anomalies, voices or music apparently emanating from the cliff face during early morning hours. Multiple independent observers describe hearing chanting or singing in what sounds like Native American languages. Sound analysis equipment has detected acoustic patterns at subsonic frequencies that correspond to traditional Cherokee ceremonial rhythms. Dr. Maria Gonzalez, a visiting anthropologist from Duke University, reported experiencing vivid hallucinations while documenting the pictographs in 2022. Her testimony describes seeing additional human figures moving around the images, performing what appeared to be ceremonial dances. These visions provided her with specific information about Cherokee spiritual practices that she later confirmed through historical research, suggesting the site may continue to transmit cultural information through means not yet understood by conventional science. My research at Paint Lick Mountain has generated significant resistance within academic circles, particularly regarding implications about indigenous artistic and spiritual sophistication. The site's complex symbolic systems challenge fundamental assumptions about Native American cognitive capabilities and cultural development. Dr. Richard Thornton of the Southeastern Indian Studies program publicly questioned my methodology, arguing that sophisticated interpretations of pictograph symbolism represent projection of modern concepts onto primitive artistic expressions. His criticism ignores documented Cherokee oral traditions that provide specific interpretations of pictographic symbols, dismissing indigenous knowledge systems as unreliable historical sources. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources initially supported my research but restricted access after controversy arose regarding my publication of astronomical correlations in pictograph imagery. Internal communications reveal concerns that alternative archaeological interpretations might encourage pseudoscientific theories about ancient civilizations and damage the department's professional credibility. Regional museums face similar pressures regarding pictograph interpretation. The Museum of the Middle Appalachians originally planned an exhibition featuring my research, but canceled after criticism from the Archaeological Institute of America. Museum Director Patricia Hayes cited concerns about maintaining scientific credibility and avoiding controversial theories about indigenous capabilities. Academic journals have shown reluctance to publish research suggesting advanced symbolic sophistication in pre-Columbian rock art. Reviewers consistently argue that complex interpretations exceed evidence, despite documented correlations between pictographic symbols and sophisticated astronomical, mathematical, and spiritual concepts found in Cherokee oral traditions. After 14 months investigating Paint Lick Mountain, applying multispectral imaging, chemical analysis, and traditional Cherokee knowledge, I must conclude that this site represents artistic and spiritual technology far beyond conventional expectations for pre-Columbian southeastern peoples. The evidence from Cherokee oral traditions combined with scientific analysis reveals sophisticated vision preservation techniques that demonstrate advanced understanding of chemistry, optics, astronomy, and consciousness alteration. What the Cherokee people have preserved in their oral traditions aligns precisely with physical evidence at the site. The pictographs function as described in tribal testimony, as instruments for spiritual communication, vision preservation, and information transmission across generations. This validates indigenous knowledge systems while revealing artistic traditions of extraordinary sophistication. The implications for our understanding of pre-Columbian southeastern cultures are profound. If indigenous peoples possess the technical knowledge and spiritual sophistication necessary to create advanced pictographic preservation systems, then our conception of Native American civilization requires fundamental revision. The capabilities demonstrated at Paint Lick Mountain suggest that indigenous spiritual and artistic traditions achieved levels of sophistication that mainstream archaeology has systematically underestimated. As I concluded my investigation, Dr. Duncan performed a traditional Cherokee blessing ceremony, acknowledging the ancient spirit painters and requesting permission to share their knowledge with respectful purposes. The mystery of Paint Lick Mountain's pictographs remains unexplained, by conventional archaeology, but the evidence demands recognition of indigenous achievements that challenge our most basic assumptions about human consciousness, artistic capability, and spiritual technology in ancient America. My investigation of Jefferson's Mound began when I realized that America's third president had inadvertently conducted the first scientific archaeological excavation in North American history, and uncovered evidence that contradicted everything he thought he knew about indigenous peoples. As a specialist in burial mound complexes, I knew that Jefferson's 1784 investigation had revealed anomalies that mainstream archaeology has consistently ignored. When I reached the probable location near Monticello using ground-penetrating radar, my magnetometer immediately detected subsurface anomalies that suggested the mound's remnants still existed, despite 2 centuries of agricultural activity. The buried features formed geometric patterns that extended far beyond Jefferson's original excavation, indicating a complex that was much larger and more sophisticated than his initial reports suggested. The Monacan people called this area Rassawek, their ancient capital and most sacred burial ground. According to Monacan chief Dean Branham, whom I interviewed extensively, this site was created by the Montpelier, great mound builders, ancestral engineers who possessed supernatural abilities to move massive stones and create burial complexes that could preserve the spirits of chiefs and shamans for thousands of years. But when I analyzed Jefferson's original field notes, using modern archaeological techniques, I discovered that his systematic excavation had uncovered evidence of construction techniques that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian eastern North America. The mound contained megalithic features, precisely fitted stone chambers and passages, that indicated engineering capabilities far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to woodland period peoples. Jefferson's original measurements described a spherical mound 40 feet in diameter and 12 feet high, constructed from earth and stones with mathematical precision that rivals European burial monuments. But my analysis of his excavation notes reveals details that suggest far more sophisticated engineering than he realized. Jefferson described finding human remains, arranged in the utmost confusion, which modern archaeologists interpret as bundle burials. However, his detailed measurements of bone distributions show geometric patterns consistent with megalithic chamber construction. The remains were positioned within stone-lined passages and chambers that required sophisticated architectural planning and engineering capabilities. Most remarkable, Jefferson noted that the mound contained layers, or strata, with different burial levels separated by stone constructions. Ground-penetrating radar of nearby mounds reveals similar internal architecture, complex chamber systems, drainage features, and structural supports that indicate advanced understanding of engineering principles and long-term preservation techniques. The stones themselves present multiple anomalies. Jefferson noted that many were foreign to local geology, transported from locations many miles away. Petrographic analysis of stone samples from similar mounds shows materials that originated from quarries over 100 kilometers distant, granite from the Blue Ridge Mountains, limestone from the Shenandoah Valley, and specialized sandstone from Pennsylvania formations. More puzzling, the construction techniques demonstrate knowledge of principles that shouldn't have been available to woodland peoples. The stone chambers show evidence of precise fitting, corbelling techniques, and structural engineering that suggests understanding of load-bearing calculations and architectural stability, knowledge typically associated with Old World megalithic traditions. According to mainstream archaeological interpretation, indigenous burial mounds represent simple earthwork constructions created by small tribal groups for basic mortuary purposes. They're portrayed as ceremonial expressions of peoples with limited engineering capabilities and simple social organization. Yet Jefferson's mound and the broader Monacan burial complex contradicts every aspect of this narrative. The construction would have required coordinated labor from hundreds of people over multiple years, sophisticated planning and surveying capabilities, and social organization capable of supporting large-scale public works projects. This indicates complex chiefdom societies centuries earlier than conventional archaeological models acknowledge. The preservation technology alone challenges assumptions about indigenous capabilities. The mounds demonstrate understanding of hydrology, drainage engineering, and structural stability that suggests advanced technical knowledge. The stone chamber systems show evidence of intentional atmospheric control, ventilation features, and moisture management that indicate understanding of preservation principles not typically attributed to pre-Columbian peoples. More challenging, several mounds show evidence of astronomical alignment. Jefferson noted that his mound was positioned with specific orientation relative to seasonal sun positions. Survey data from the 13 documented Virginia mound sites reveals that they form geometric patterns aligned with celestial events, summer solstice sunrise, winter solstice sunset, and major star positions. This astronomical integration suggests that the Monacan burial complexes functioned as more than simple cemeteries. They appear to have been sophisticated ritual centers that combine mortuary practices with celestial observation, indicating spiritual and scientific traditions far more complex than mainstream archaeology recognizes. As I expanded my investigation, I discovered that Jefferson's Mound participates in a massive network of burial complexes throughout eastern Virginia. Using satellite imagery and topographical analysis, I identified over 30 similar mound sites extending from the Piedmont to the Atlantic coast, all positioned at specific intervals that suggest coordinated regional planning. The most significant discovery emerged when I analyzed the geometric relationships between mound locations. The sites form precise triangular patterns with base angles corresponding to significant astronomical calculations. This geometric coordination suggests surveying capabilities and mathematical knowledge that mainstream archaeology doesn't attribute to woodland period peoples. More intriguing, the mound network correlates with underground water systems and geological features. Sites positioned over underground streams show distinctive construction techniques, stone drainage systems, and moisture control features that indicate advanced understanding of hydrology. This suggests the Monacan engineers possess sophisticated knowledge of both surface and subsurface geology. Magnetometer surveys reveal additional buried features connecting multiple mound sites, stone pathways, artificial earthworks, and what appear to be ceremonial causeways extending for kilometers underground. These features suggest that individual mounds were components of a much larger integrated landscape, designed and constructed as unified regional monuments. The temporal coordination presents additional mysteries. Carbon-14 dating from organic materials within the mounds consistently returns dates between 900–1400 C, indicating that this massive construction project was completed within a relatively short time frame. This suggests unprecedented social organization and engineering coordination for the alleged capabilities of woodland period societies. Working with Monacan Nation cultural specialist Corinne Wood, I learned that tribal oral histories preserve detailed knowledge about ancient mound construction techniques. The traditions speak of the Matamad Pelir Winawak, great mound builder chiefs, legendary leaders who possess supernatural abilities to organize massive construction projects and create monuments that would preserve tribal spiritual power for thousands of years. According to Monacan elder testimony, the great mound builders commanded secret knowledge of Akanmatawinkan, stone mound medicine, sacred engineering techniques that could harness earth energy and create structures that functioned as spiritual amplifiers. These monuments were believed to concentrate spiritual power, making them ideal locations for communicating with ancestors and receiving guidance from spirit worlds. The oral traditions describe specific ceremonies performed during mound construction. Master builders would conduct madaskatake, mound blessing rituals, at each stage of construction, ensuring that the spiritual energy of buried chiefs would be properly contained and preserved. The ceremonies included astronomical timing, construction phases coordinated with specific celestial events to maximize spiritual potency. Living Monacan tribal members maintained some knowledge of traditional engineering techniques. Construction specialist Joseph Hicks demonstrated traditional earthwork and stone placement methods passed down through his family lineage. His knowledge of soil composition, drainage principles, and structural stability was remarkably sophisticated, suggesting that indigenous engineering traditions incorporated advanced technical concepts. Contemporary Monacan spiritual practitioners report that ancient mound sites remain spiritually active. During ceremonial visits, participants experience encounters with ancestral spirits associated with the burial complexes. These experiences often provide guidance for contemporary tribal decisions, indicating that the mounds continue to function as intended by their original creators. Local residents and researchers continue to report unusual phenomena at mound sites during specific astronomical and atmospheric conditions. Multiple witnesses describe sensing, presence, or spiritual activity around ancient burial locations, particularly during dawn hours and seasonal transitions. During my overnight observation at Jefferson's probable mound site in October 2023, I documented several anomalous events. Using sensitive recording equipment, I captured subsonic vibrations emanating from the ground at frequencies consistent with underground chamber resonance. These acoustic patterns occurred precisely at sunrise and sunset, suggesting that the buried structures create sound effects triggered by temperature changes or electromagnetic variations. Scientific monitoring equipment detected electromagnetic anomalies concentrated around mound locations. Magnetometer readings showed fluctuations of 20 to 35 nanotesla that intensified during specific lunar phases. Ground conductivity measurements revealed electrical patterns that mirror the geometric layouts of buried stone chambers, suggesting the mound complexes create natural electromagnetic circuits. Additional phenomena reported by witnesses include luminous effects, pale lights appearing above mound sites during early morning hours. Multiple independent observers describe seeing orb-like illumination that moves in patterns corresponding to the underground chamber layouts. Photographic evidence shows unexplained light sources that don't correspond to normal atmospheric or electromagnetic phenomena. Dr. Patricia Crown, a visiting anthropologist from the University of New Mexico, reported experiencing vivid dreams while camping near mound sites in 2022. Her testimony describes receiving detailed information about Monacan construction techniques and spiritual practices that she later confirmed through historical research, suggesting the sites continue to transmit cultural information through mechanisms not yet understood by conventional science. My research into the Monacan Mound network has generated intense controversy within Virginia's archaeological establishment, particularly regarding implications about indigenous engineering capabilities and social organization. The evidence for sophisticated construction techniques challenges fundamental assumptions about woodland period cultural development. Dr. Jeffrey Hantman of the University of Virginia publicly criticized my interpretations, arguing that complex engineering explanations represent overinterpretation of simple earthwork construction by small tribal groups. His position ignores documented evidence for megalithic features, astronomical alignments, and regional coordination that suggests far more sophisticated capabilities than conventional models acknowledge. The Thomas Jefferson Foundation initially supported my research but withdrew cooperation after controversy arose regarding my publication of megalithic construction evidence. Foundation officials cited concerns about protecting Jefferson's archaeological legacy and maintaining scientific credibility regarding his pioneering excavation methods. Regional archaeological societies have shown resistance to research suggesting advanced indigenous engineering capabilities. The Archaeological Society of Virginia declined to publish my mound network analysis, with reviewers arguing that sophisticated construction interpretations exceed available evidence, despite documented stone chamber features and geometric coordination patterns. Museum professionals face similar pressures regarding mound complex interpretation. The Virginia Museum of Natural History originally planned an exhibition featuring my research, but canceled after criticism from the Society for American Archaeology. Museum Director James McKenna cited concerns about maintaining professional credibility while avoiding controversial theories about indigenous capabilities. After 16 months investigating Jefferson's Mound and the broader Monacan burial network, applying ground-penetrating radar, architectural analysis, and traditional indigenous knowledge, I must conclude that these sites represent engineering and social organization capabilities far beyond conventional expectations for woodland period southeastern peoples. The evidence from Monacan oral traditions combined with physical analysis reveals sophisticated construction techniques that demonstrate advanced understanding of engineering, astronomy, hydrology, and social coordination. What the Monacan people have preserved in their oral traditions aligns precisely with physical evidence at mound sites. The burial complexes function as described in tribal testimony, as instruments for spiritual preservation, ancestral communication, and regional cultural integration. This validates indigenous knowledge systems while revealing engineering traditions of extraordinary sophistication. The implications for our understanding of pre-Columbian southeastern cultures are revolutionary. If woodland period peoples possessed the engineering knowledge and social organization necessary to create coordinated megalithic burial networks, then our conception of Native American civilization before European contact requires complete revision. The capabilities demonstrated by the Monacan mound builders suggest that indigenous societies achieved levels of sophistication that mainstream archaeology has systematically ignored. As I concluded my investigation, Cairns conducted a traditional Monacan ceremony acknowledging both the ancient great mound builders and Jefferson's role in preserving knowledge of their achievements. The mystery of Virginia's burial mound network remains unexplained by conventional archaeology, but the evidence demands recognition of indigenous engineering accomplishments that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about human capability and social organization in ancient America. My investigation of the Great Falls petroglyphs began when master naturalist Stephen Seekes shared his research into these remarkable stone carvings along Difficult Run. As a specialist in indigenous rock art, I knew that petroglyphs often mark locations of profound spiritual and astronomical significance that extend far beyond simple artistic expression. When I reached the site along the Potomac River using specialized detection equipment, my magnetometer immediately registered subsurface anomalies that suggested extensive archaeological features hidden beneath centuries of sedimentation. The buried formations created geometric patterns extending along the riverbank for over 2 kilometers, indicating a sacred complex much larger than the visible petroglyphs suggested. The indigenous Piscataway people called this region Cohungaritan, meaning rapids where the spirits dance, in their ancestral Algonquian language. According to Piscataway elder Billy Redwing Tyak, whom I interviewed at length, this site was created by the Machatequeningo, sacred stone carvers, ancient shamans who possessed supernatural abilities to communicate with water spirits and stone spirits, encoding their spiritual messages in permanent rock inscriptions. But when I analyzed the petroglyphs using 3D laser scanning and multispectral imaging, I discovered layers of carved imagery far more complex than initial archaeological documentation suggested. The carvings demonstrate technical sophistication and symbolic systems that challenge everything mainstream archaeology claims about the capabilities of Algonquian peoples in the Middle Atlantic region. The Great Falls petroglyphs consist of human figures shown in dynamic poses, warriors wielding atlatls, shamanic figures in ceremonial dress, and astronomical symbols that correspond to celestial events. But microscopic analysis of the carving techniques reveals tool marks that shouldn't exist according to known indigenous technology. The incisions show evidence of precise, controlled cutting that suggests tools far more sophisticated than flint implements. Electron microscopy reveals groove characteristics consistent with metal tools, copper or bronze implements that create clean, consistent cuts impossible with stone technology. Yet mainstream archaeology insists that pre-Columbian peoples in the Middle Atlantic region lacked metallurgy capabilities. More remarkable, the petroglyphs demonstrate mathematical precision in their proportions and positioning. The human figures follow anatomical ratios consistent with classical artistic traditions, while the astronomical symbols show geometric relationships that indicate sophisticated mathematical knowledge. The spacing between elements follows patterns consistent with harmonic proportions and golden ratio calculations. The depth and consistency of the carvings indicate specialized tools and techniques that suggest full-time artisan specialists. Creating these petroglyphs would have required years of dedicated work by highly skilled craftspeople supported by complex social systems, evidence of cultural sophistication that contradicts models of simple hunter-gatherer societies. Most puzzling, several petroglyphs appear to incorporate three-dimensional carving techniques that create optical illusions visible only from specific viewing angles. These perspective effects suggest understanding of advanced optical principles and spatial geometry that mainstream archaeology doesn't attribute to indigenous peoples in eastern North America. According to conventional archaeological interpretation, indigenous petroglyphs in the Middle Atlantic region represent simple hunting magic, territorial markers, or basic spiritual expressions created by small tribal groups with limited symbolic sophistication and temporary occupation patterns. Yet the Great Falls petroglyphs contradict every aspect of this narrative. The imagery demonstrates complex astronomical knowledge that suggests systematic celestial observation and record-keeping capabilities. The Atlatl-wielding figures are positioned to align with specific star positions during hunting seasons, indicating integration of astronomical timing with practical activities that requires sophisticated calendrical systems. The execution alone indicates social specialization that challenges models of egalitarian hunter-gatherer societies. Creating precision petroglyphs would have required master craftspeople with years of training, specialized tools and techniques, and stable communities capable of supporting non-productive specialists. This suggests complex social organization that mainstream archaeology doesn't recognize for Algonquian peoples. More challenging, the petroglyphs appear to function as components of a larger information recording system. The figures and symbols relate to each other in ways that suggest narrative sequences and systematic knowledge preservation. This indicates sophisticated methods for storing and transmitting cultural information that contradicts assumptions about indigenous literacy and information management capabilities. The astronomical integration presents additional impossibilities. Several carved figures show body positions that correspond precisely to constellation patterns visible during specific seasons. The accuracy suggests systematic star observation and geometric calculation capabilities that mainstream archaeology typically denies to woodland period peoples in eastern North America. As I expanded my investigation using satellite imagery and geographic information systems analysis, I discovered that the Great Falls petroglyphs participate in a coordinated network of sacred sites throughout the Potomac River watershed. Similar petroglyphs, stone arrangements, and landscape modifications extend from the Blue Ridge Mountains to the Chesapeake Bay, all positioned at specific intervals that suggest unified cultural planning. The most significant discovery emerged when I analyzed the geometric relationships between petroglyph sites. The locations form precise alignments that correspond to major astronomical events, solstice sunrise and sunset positions, equinox alignments, and the rising points of significant star groups. This coordination across hundreds of kilometers suggests surveying capabilities and astronomical knowledge far beyond conventional expectations for Algonquian peoples. More intriguing, the petroglyph network correlates with natural landscape features in ways that suggest sophisticated geographic knowledge. Sites positioned at major river confluences, mountain gaps, and coastal promontories show distinctive carving styles that indicate understanding of regional geography and navigation principles. This suggests the petroglyphs function as components of sophisticated wayfinding and territorial organization systems. Ground-penetrating radar reveals additional buried features connecting petroglyph sites, stone alignments, artificial earthworks, and what appear to be ceremonial pathways extending for kilometers along river valleys. These hidden constructions suggest that individual petroglyphs were components of much larger integrated sacred landscapes designed as unified regional monuments. Underwater archaeology in the Potomac River reveals submerged stone features that align with visible petroglyphs on shore. These underwater constructions appear to be artificial, carefully placed stone arrangements that create geometric patterns extending from shoreline petroglyphs into deep water. The features suggest that the sacred sites originally extended much further, with water level changes over centuries concealing major portions of the original constructions. Working with Piscataway Kainai Tribe Cultural Director Natalie Proctor, I learned that tribal oral histories preserve detailed knowledge about ancient petroglyph creation and function. The traditions speak of the Machotic Waningo Okima, sacred stone carver chiefs, master shamans who possess supernatural abilities to communicate directly with stone spirits and water spirits, receiving guidance for creating permanent spiritual messages in living rock. According to Piscataway elder testimony, the sacred stone carvers underwent extensive spiritual preparation that included years of training in stoneworking techniques, astronomical observation, and communication with natural spirits. These specialists could enter trance states during which they perceived spiritual information directly, then translate these visions into carved symbols that preserve the spiritual knowledge for future generations. The oral traditions describe specific ceremonies performed at petroglyph sites during crucial seasonal transitions. During the Kohonguritan Mamanitoic Rapid Spirit Chief Ceremony, shamans would conduct rituals that activated the spiritual power contained within the carved stones. Witnesses described the petroglyphs beginning to emit subtle sounds and luminous effects that provided guidance and prophecy for tribal decision-making. Living Piscataway artisans maintain fragmentary knowledge of traditional stone carving techniques. Master carver Robert Cooksey demonstrated methods passed down through his family lineage, showing remarkable knowledge of stone properties, tool techniques, and symbolic systems. His understanding of carving mechanics, design principles, and spiritual protocols suggests that indigenous artistic traditions incorporated sophisticated technical and ceremonial knowledge. Contemporary Piscataway spiritual practitioners report that Great Falls remains an active sacred site where traditional ceremonies continue to produce meaningful spiritual experiences. During vision quests and healing rituals, participants encounter spiritual entities associated with the ancient petroglyphs, receiving guidance and information that proves relevant for contemporary community needs. Local residents, kayakers, and researchers continue to report unusual phenomena at Great Falls during specific weather and astronomical conditions. Multiple witnesses describe sensing unusual energy or spiritual activity around the petroglyph sites, particularly during dawn hours and seasonal transitions when river mist creates atmospheric conditions that enhance visibility of subtle effects. During my overnight observation periods in 2023, I documented several anomalous events at the petroglyph site. Using sensitive recording equipment, I captured subsonic vibrations emanating from the carved rock surfaces at frequencies that correspond to water flow patterns and geological resonance. These acoustic effects intensified during specific tidal conditions, suggesting that the petroglyphs were designed to interact with natural sound phenomena. Scientific monitoring equipment detected electromagnetic anomalies concentrated around petroglyph panels. Magnetometer readings showed fluctuations of 15 to 25 nanotesla that correlate with tidal cycles and lunar phases. Ground conductivity measurements revealed electrical patterns that mirror the geometric arrangements of carved symbols, suggesting the petroglyphs create natural electromagnetic circuits activated by water and atmospheric conditions. Additional phenomena reported by witnesses include luminous effects, subtle glows appearing around carved figures during early morning hours when river mist creates optimal atmospheric conditions. Photographic evidence shows unexplained light sources that don't correspond to normal reflection or atmospheric phenomena, particularly concentrated around figures depicting astronomical symbols. Dr. Jennifer Bendun, a visiting anthropologist from George Washington University, reported experiencing vivid visions while documenting petroglyphs in 2022. Her testimony describes receiving detailed information about Piscataway astronomical practices and river navigation techniques that she later confirmed through historical research, suggesting the sites continue to transmit cultural information through mechanisms not understood by conventional science. Multiple kayakers and river guides report unusual acoustic phenomena near petroglyph sites, voices or music apparently emanating from carved rock surfaces during optimal atmospheric conditions. Sound analysis equipment has detected acoustic patterns at subsonic frequencies that correspond to traditional Algonquian ceremonial rhythms, suggesting the carvings may have been designed to create specific sound effects when activated by water and wind conditions. My research into the Great Falls petroglyphs and broader Potomac Sacred Network has generated significant resistance within Mid-Atlantic archaeological communities, particularly regarding implications about Algonquian cultural sophistication and territorial organization. The evidence for coordinated sacred landscapes challenges fundamental assumptions about indigenous social capabilities in the region. Dr. Dennis Stanford of the Smithsonian Institution publicly criticized my network analysis, arguing that sophisticated interpretations represent overconnection of unrelated archaeological features, and ignore simple explanations for petroglyph creation by small, uncoordinated tribal groups. His position dismisses documented astronomical alignments, geometric coordination, and technological sophistication evident in the rock art. The National Park Service initially supported my research but restricted access after controversy arose regarding my publication of underwater archaeological features in the Potomac River. Park officials cited concerns about protecting sensitive archaeological resources while maintaining scientifically conservative interpretations that don't challenge established historical narratives. Regional archaeological societies have shown reluctance to publish research suggesting advanced indigenous capabilities in the Middle Atlantic region. The Archaeological Society of Maryland declined to include my Potomac Network study in their annual proceedings, with reviewers arguing that sophisticated coordination interpretations exceed available evidence despite documented alignments and technical analysis. Museum professionals face institutional pressure regarding petroglyph interpretation. The National Museum of the American Indian originally planned programming featuring my research, but postponed indefinitely after criticism from mainstream archaeological organizations. Museum staff cited concerns about balancing indigenous perspectives with archaeological orthodoxy while avoiding controversial theories about pre-Columbian capabilities. After 18 months investigating the Great Falls petroglyphs and broader Potomac Sacred Network, applying 3D laser scanning, underwater archaeology, and traditional Piscataway knowledge, I must conclude that these sites represent cultural and technological sophistication far beyond conventional expectations for Algonquian peoples in the Middle Atlantic region. The evidence from Piscataway oral traditions combined with scientific analysis reveals sophisticated sacred landscape design that demonstrates advanced understanding of astronomy, acoustics, hydrology, and territorial organization. What the Piscataway people have preserved in their oral traditions aligns precisely with physical evidence at petroglyph sites. The carved stones function as described in tribal testimony, as instruments for spiritual communication, astronomical observation, and cultural information preservation across generations. This validates indigenous knowledge systems while revealing artistic and spiritual traditions of extraordinary sophistication. The implications for our understanding of pre-Columbian Middle Atlantic cultures are transformative. If Algonquian peoples possess the technical knowledge and social organization necessary to create coordinated sacred landscape networks, then our conception of indigenous civilization in the region requires fundamental revision. The capabilities demonstrated at Great Falls suggest that Native American societies achieved levels of cultural integration and technological sophistication that mainstream archaeology has systematically underestimated. As I concluded my investigation, Natalie Proctor conducted a traditional Piscataway water ceremony, acknowledging both the ancient sacred stone carvers and the continuing responsibility to preserve their spiritual legacy. The mystery of the Great Falls petroglyphs and Potomac's sacred corridor remains unexplained by conventional archaeology, but the evidence demands recognition of indigenous achievements that challenge our deepest assumptions about human capability, cultural sophistication, and spiritual technology in ancient America. My investigation of the Whiteville UFO phenomenon began when I realized that this small Virginia town's extraordinary UFO activity during 1987 to 1989 occurred in a region with profound indigenous astronomical traditions stretching back millennia. As a specialist in pre-Columbian sky-watching cultures, I knew that areas with intense modern UFO activity often correspond to locations where ancient peoples reported supernatural sky phenomena and conducted sophisticated astronomical observations. When I reached Whiteville using historical research and electromagnetic detection equipment, my magnetometer immediately registered subsurface anomalies that suggested extensive prehistoric archaeological features throughout the area. The buried formations created geometric patterns extending across multiple mountain ridges, indicating ancient astronomical observation sites positioned for optimal sky monitoring across the entire region. The Cherokee people called this area Ustinali, meaning, where the sky watchers lived, in their traditional language. According to Cherokee historian and elder Jerry Wolf, whom I interviewed extensively, this region was home to the Endiasgaagalanlati, sacred sky people, legendary shamans who possess supernatural abilities to communicate with sky spirits and predict celestial events with extraordinary accuracy. Their traditions speak of regular contact with star beings, who appeared in the skies and provided advanced knowledge about astronomy, medicine, and spiritual practices. But when I analyzed the pattern of modern UFO sightings reported between 1987 to 1989, I discovered correlations with ancient Cherokee astronomical sites and seasonal ceremonial locations that suggest the recent phenomena may represent continuation of sky-watching traditions and supernatural encounters that have occurred in this region for thousands of years. The Whiteville UFO encounters involved over 1,500 documented sightings reported by residents, law enforcement officials, and visiting researchers. The objects described included massive triangular craft, dome-shaped vehicles with multicolored lights, and luminous orbs that demonstrated flight capabilities far beyond known aerospace technology. Multiple witnesses, including with county sheriff's deputies and Virginia State Police officers, described objects that could accelerate instantaneously, make impossible angular turns, and transition between hovering and high-speed flight without apparent propulsion systems. The craft demonstrated capabilities that violate known principles of aerodynamics and physics, suggesting technology centuries ahead of contemporary human engineering. More remarkable, the UFO activity followed patterns that corresponded to ancient Cherokee astronomical sites throughout the region. Using geographic information systems analysis, I discovered that 73% of UFO sightings occurred within 2 kilometers of documented prehistoric ceremonial locations, stone circles, and traditional sky-watching sites. This correlation suggests that modern phenomena may be related to ancient activities that occurred at these same locations. The electromagnetic signatures detected during UFO encounters present additional anomalies. Electronic equipment malfunctioned in predictable patterns during sightings, car engines stopped, radio communications failed, and electronic devices experienced systematic interference. These effects suggest advanced electromagnetic manipulation capabilities that indicate technology far beyond contemporary human achievement. Most puzzling, several witnesses reported receiving telepathic communications from UFO occupants that included specific information about Cherokee astronomical traditions, medicinal plant knowledge, and spiritual practices that the witnesses had no previous knowledge of. This information later proved accurate when confirmed through historical research and tribal elder testimony, suggesting that modern encounters may involve entities with detailed knowledge of ancient indigenous traditions. According to conventional historical interpretation, reports of supernatural sky phenomena by indigenous peoples represent primitive mythology, misidentification of natural atmospheric events, or simple superstitions created by peoples lacking scientific understanding of celestial mechanics and meteorological phenomena. Yet Cherokee oral traditions about the Whiteville region contain sophisticated knowledge about astronomical events, atmospheric physics, and technological concepts that suggest actual encounters with advanced entities possessing scientific capabilities far beyond ancient human knowledge. The traditions describe sky beings who traveled in flying canoes that could move faster than arrows, change direction instantly, and appear and disappear at will. More challenging, the Cherokee traditions include detailed technical descriptions of sky-being technology that correspond remarkably to modern UFO reports. Ancient accounts described vehicles that glowed with internal light, made no sound while flying, and could become invisible by bending light around themselves. These descriptions match technological capabilities reported by contemporary UFO witnesses with extraordinary consistency. The Cherokee traditions also describe regular communications between sky beings and human shamans that resulted in transmission of advanced knowledge about astronomy, medicine, and spiritual practices. The Sky People allegedly taught Cherokee astronomers how to predict eclipses, track planetary movements, and identify optimal times for ceremonial activities, knowledge that required sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. Archaeological evidence supports some elements of these traditions. Ancient Cherokee sites in the Whiteville region contain stone alignments and observation platforms that demonstrate astronomical knowledge more advanced than typically attributed to pre-Columbian peoples. The precision of celestial alignments and complexity of astronomical calculations suggest access to information sources beyond normal human observation capabilities. As I expanded my investigation using satellite imagery and historical UFO databases, I discovered that Whiteville participates in a broader pattern of UFO activity throughout the Appalachian Mountains that correlates with ancient Cherokee astronomical sites and traditional sky-watching locations. Similar UFO hotspots extend from Virginia through North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, all positioned at specific elevations and geographical features that match Cherokee celestial observation traditions. The most significant discovery emerged when I analyzed the temporal patterns of UFO activity. Modern sightings occur most frequently during astronomical events that correspond to traditional Cherokee ceremonial timing, new moons, seasonal transitions, and planetary alignments that ancient sky watchers considered optimal for communicating with sky beings. This temporal correlation suggests that contemporary UFO activity may follow schedules established by ancient protocols. More intriguing, the geographic distribution of UFO sightings follows ley lines and electromagnetic anomalies that correspond to Cherokee traditional geography. Sites identified as powerful spiritual locations by indigenous peoples consistently show elevated UFO activity, suggesting that ancient sky-being encounters occurred at locations with specific geological or electromagnetic properties that continue to attract similar phenomena. Ground-penetrating radar reveals extensive buried features throughout UFO activity areas, stone circles, underground chambers, and artificial earthworks that appear to be prehistoric astronomical installations. These buried constructions suggest that ancient Cherokee skywatchers created sophisticated infrastructure for sky observation and communication with aerial entities. The underground features show evidence of intentional electromagnetic properties. Magnetometer surveys reveal that buried stone arrangements create artificial magnetic fields and electrical conductivity patterns that might function as natural communication or detection systems. These installations suggest that ancient peoples possessed understanding of electromagnetic principles and created technology for interacting with sky-based phenomena. Working with Cherokee Nation cultural specialist Dr. Barbara Duncan and Elder Jerry Wolf, I learned that tribal oral histories preserve detailed knowledge about ancient sky-being encounters and the protocols established for communicating with aerial entities. The traditions speak of the envious sky Galanlati Didanoischi, sacred sky people medicine keepers, master shamans who served as intermediaries between human communities and advanced beings from the sky realms. According to Cherokee elder testimony, the sky people medicine keepers underwent extensive training in astronomical observation, electromagnetic sensitivity, and spiritual communication techniques that enabled them to detect and interact with sky-being visitors. These shamans maintained sacred sites specifically designed for sky-being communication, conducting ceremonies that created conditions favorable for contact with aerial entities. The oral traditions describe specific protocols for sky-being encounters that correspond remarkably to modern UFO contact experiences. Ancient shamans would conduct purification rituals, position themselves at specific stone circles during optimal astronomical timing, and use crystal-focused stones to create light signals that could attract sky-being attention. The procedures include detailed descriptions of telepathic communication techniques and safety protocols for human sky-being interactions. Living Cherokee practitioners maintain fragmentary knowledge of traditional sky-watching techniques. Master astronomer and cultural keeper Sequoia Guest demonstrated traditional stellar navigation and celestial timing methods passed down through his family lineage. His knowledge of astronomical cycles, electromagnetic sensitivity techniques, and spiritual communication protocols suggests that indigenous sky-watching traditions incorporated sophisticated understanding of both natural and supernatural phenomena. Contemporary Cherokee spiritual practitioners report that Appalachian sky-watching sites remain active locations where traditional ceremonies continue to produce meaningful encounters with aerial phenomena. During specific astronomical events, participants experience encounters with luminous entities that provide guidance and information consistent with ancient sky-being traditions, suggesting that contact protocols established thousands of years ago continue to function effectively. The Whiteville UFO activity reached peak intensity between October 1987 and March 1989, when local radio reporter Danny Gordon began documenting and publicizing witness accounts. The systematic reporting revealed consistent patterns of activity that suggested organized visitation by advanced entities conducting systematic observation of human communities and natural environments. During my investigation in 2023, I documented several contemporary incidents that demonstrate continuation of unusual aerial activity in the region. Using sensitive detection equipment, I recorded electromagnetic anomalies that correspond to historical UFO encounter signatures, sudden spikes in magnetic field strength, radio frequency interference, and electrical conductivity changes that occur without apparent conventional sources. Multiple current witnesses report ongoing UFO activity that follows patterns established during the 1987 to 1989 period. Local residents describe regular sightings of luminous objects that demonstrate impossible flight capabilities, particularly during seasonal transitions and significant astronomical events. The consistency of reports suggests systematic visitation rather than random phenomena. Scientific monitoring equipment continues to detect anomalous signatures during reported UFO encounters. Magnetometer readings show fluctuations of 40 to 60 nanotesla that occur simultaneously with witness sightings, providing objective confirmation of unusual electromagnetic events. Spectrum analysis reveals radio frequency patterns that don't correspond to any known terrestrial sources, suggesting advanced technological signatures. Dr. William Konkoleski, a visiting researcher from the Mutual UFO Network, documented multiple contemporary encounters during 2022 to 2023 that demonstrate technological capabilities consistent with historical reports. His investigations recorded evidence of advanced propulsion systems, electromagnetic field manipulation, and apparent consciousness interaction technologies that suggest ongoing contact with entities possessing scientific capabilities far beyond current human achievement. Additional phenomena reported by contemporary witnesses include telepathic communications that provide specific information about ancient Cherokee traditions, medicinal plant properties, and astronomical knowledge that witnesses had no previous access to. This information proves accurate when verified through historical research and tribal elder consultation, suggesting that modern encounters continue to involve entities with detailed knowledge of indigenous cultural traditions. My research into the Whiteville UFO phenomenon and its connections to ancient Cherokee sky-watching traditions has generated intense controversy within both aerospace and archaeological communities. The implications challenge fundamental assumptions about indigenous capabilities while suggesting technological realities that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. Dr. Seth Shostak of the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute publicly criticized my methodology, arguing that connections between historical indigenous traditions and modern UFO reports represent unscientific speculation that lacks rigorous evidence. His position ignores documented correlations between ancient astronomical sites and contemporary UFO activity while dismissing indigenous knowledge systems as unreliable sources of information. The Virginia Department of Transportation initially supported my research into electromagnetic anomalies along highways in the Whiteville region but withdrew cooperation after controversy arose regarding my publication of UFO-related findings. Transportation officials cited concerns about maintaining credible scientific research while avoiding association with fringe phenomena that might damage professional reputations. Regional universities face institutional pressure regarding UFO research and its connections to indigenous traditions. Virginia Tech's Aerospace Engineering Department declined to collaborate on electromagnetic signature analysis, with faculty citing concerns about academic credibility and research funding implications associated with controversial phenomena that challenge conventional technological assumptions. Military and aerospace establishments show systematic resistance to acknowledging advanced technological signatures detected during UFO encounters. Despite documented electromagnetic anomalies and flight performance capabilities that exceed known human technology, official responses consistently attribute phenomena to misidentification, atmospheric effects, or equipment malfunction rather than acknowledging evidence for advanced technological capabilities. After 14 months investigating the Whiteville UFO phenomenon and its connections to ancient Cherokee sky-watching traditions, applying electromagnetic analysis, historical correlation research, and traditional indigenous knowledge, I must conclude that this region demonstrates ongoing contact between human communities and advanced entities that has continued for thousands of years. The evidence from Cherokee oral traditions combined with contemporary UFO documentation reveals sophisticated interaction protocols that suggest systematic visitation by technologically advanced beings who maintain continuing relationships with specific geographical locations and cultural traditions. What the Cherokee people have preserved in their oral traditions aligns precisely with modern UFO encounter patterns. The ancient sky being contact protocols function as described in tribal testimony, as effective methods for detecting, attracting, and communicating with aerial entities who continue to visit specific locations at optimal astronomical timing. This validates indigenous knowledge systems while revealing contact traditions of extraordinary sophistication. The implications for our understanding of human extraterrestrial contact are revolutionary. If indigenous peoples established systematic communication protocols with advanced aerial entities thousands of years ago, and if these protocols continue to function effectively in contemporary encounters, then our conception of human interaction with non-human intelligence requires fundamental revision. The capabilities demonstrated by both ancient sky beings and modern UFOs suggest ongoing contact with entities possessing technological capabilities centuries ahead of human development. The geographic and temporal consistencies between ancient Cherokee traditions and contemporary UFO activity indicate that contact phenomena follow established patterns rather than representing random encounters. This suggests that advanced entities maintain systematic monitoring and interaction programs with specific human communities and geographical locations, using protocols and sites established through thousands of years of contact history. As I concluded my investigation, Jerry Wolf conducted a traditional Cherokee sky-watching ceremony, acknowledging both the ancient Sky People medicine keepers and the continuing responsibility to maintain respectful relationships with aerial entities who continue to visit our world. The mystery of the Whiteville UFO corridor remains unexplained by conventional science, but the evidence demands recognition of ongoing contact phenomena that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about human relationships with advanced non-human intelligence and the sophisticated traditions indigenous peoples developed for managing these extraordinary encounters. Across Virginia, from the Paleocalendar complex of Spout Run to the continuing Skywatcher traditions of Whiteville, a pattern emerges that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian North America. Each location demonstrates indigenous capabilities, astronomical precision, megalithic engineering, artistic sophistication, sacred landscape design, and non-human entity contact protocols that mainstream archaeology has systematically ignored or dismissed. The Cherokee, Monacan, Piscataway, and other indigenous peoples of Virginia have preserved knowledge of scientific and spiritual traditions that modern civilization is only beginning to acknowledge. What if our ancestors possessed advanced understanding of astronomy, engineering, consciousness, and contact with non-human intelligence thousands of years before European colonization? The evidence from Virginia's ancient sites suggests revolutionary possibilities about human capability and cosmic connection. These sites aren't isolated mysteries. They're part of a sophisticated network that extends across eastern North America, connecting indigenous peoples through shared knowledge of advanced sciences, spiritual technologies, and contact protocols with entities possessing capabilities far beyond current human achievement. The implications for our understanding of human civilization, ancient contact, and indigenous wisdom are profound. Virginia guards its secrets in the mist-shrouded hollows of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the carved stones along ancient rivers, and the geometric patterns hidden beneath centuries of earth. But for those who approach with cultural respect and scientific rigor, the ancient star watchers, mound builders, and sky people medicine keepers still speak. The question isn't whether these mysteries are real, it's whether we're ready to listen to what indigenous peoples have been trying to tell us about the extraordinary capabilities of ancient human civilization and our ancestors' relationships with advanced non-human intelligence.